All right, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. All right, so yeah, this will be fun. We're gonna do our taxi driver movie chat. Of course, I am Andrew, aka Mass Shooter Mindgasms, for the purpose of this chat, and we've got the socially inept centrist, aka Woke Centrist, aka Dusty Cubes, aka Dustin Cubit, and we've got Tubin AKA Chris James, aka CJ, for the purposes of this chat. And we're going to talk about Taxi Driver, of course, which is the famous Martin Scorsese movie from the 70s starring Robert De Niro before he even had gray hair. And there are all sorts of family friendly fun topics associated with this, of course. Of course, when I was reminded of it when you and I talked about Joker a while ago, Dusty, because there are a lot of parallels there. And of course, it's one of the first movies about basically incels, mass shooters, and then I believe it's Jodie Foster's first role, and she plays an underage prostitute. And then there's a little bit of a political corruption aspect. Of course, a lot of people have seen the movie, and it's a very powerful film that explores a lot of controversial subjects, especially for the 70s when it came out. So, yeah, to start off with, let's start off with you, Chris. What do you think about the film in general?
Yeah, I yeah, I enjoyed it. I remember it. I'm not gonna lie, it's not one that I rewatched recently, so I do remember it, but it's not like I watched it yesterday and could reenact the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. Do you know what I mean? But I remember when I watched it, like obviously there was a lot of shock value because I watched it at a time where like this is like it was like one of the first like not R-rated movies that I saw, but yeah, with prostitutes and I don't know, with Johns and all that kind of stuff. It was just yeah, it was a different take, I guess, movie wise. So yeah, there's a lot of angles there um to the movie that we'll obviously talk about, but yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I remember thinking um Robert De Niro's character being like he was a hard guy to kind of side with morally. Do you know what I mean? Like he was
Mm-hmm.
you don't always he was trying to do good, right? Like he's trying to he obviously when he meets Jodie Foster, he doesn't sleep with her, right? He's kind of more interested in like why is she doing this, right? And um yeah, it's he doesn't come off as creepy, but he is kind of creepy and violent in a way, right? Which I don't know, you can maybe he accumulated that after hours and hours of driving people around late at night in New York City. But yeah, he's interesting as a character because he's like a guy that I don't know, he's not really cheer for, but um, you kind of I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. And I think the an interesting aspect of the movie that I forgot to mention is that this was also one of the first movies about PTSD because Robert De Niro plays a Vietnam vet, and that contributes to his gradually progression of insanity throughout the film, I think. And
Mhm.
he starts being a taxi driver at night in the first place because he can't sleep, presumably because of his PTSD. And yeah, a lot of terrible stuff happens as the movie progresses. And I'm glad that I did rewatch it recently because I actually totally forgot about the ending because this was only my second time watching it, and I totally forgot that in the end, big spoiler, of course, but Robert De Niro ends up getting away with I think murdering three people who are going to see the underage prostitute, including the pimp played by Harvey Keitel, and then he gets away with it and is seen as a hero, which is
Mhm.
which is like almost it's basically I would say equally as dark of an ending as Joker, which, as we said, there are a lot of parallels between both movies for that too. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
maybe that's what Scorsese was trying to do there, was he was trying to kind of frame it in a way where you view this guy, he's the hero, obviously, right? He ends up like being more good than bad near the end, but yeah, you're still like, yeah, you're in that moral conundrum of, you know what I mean? Do I root for this guy or do I not? You know, I don't know. I forgot to when Harvey Keitel and like he's finding out about Jodie Foster and what she does, and I think he mentions that she does like anal and all this kind of stuff. She swallows or something like that. I remember watching it at the time. That was the first time I'd ever heard that in a movie before. That wasn't a porn. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for the 70s, like we were talking about, it's super vulgar. I don't think I can't recall any other movie that I've ever seen actually that has underage prostitution as an aspect of it. There are other movies with prostitution, but not underage prostitution like that. And it's so like it really sells you the kind of darkness of the atmosphere of New York in the 70s. That's another similarity between that and Joker that we talked about, Dusty, kind of like the seedy underbelly of society in New York, and how there's this guy who comes to see Harvey Keitel who's all excited about seeing Jodie Foster again, and of course she plays it. I don't know how old she was as an actor, but she looks like she was around the age of her character, who was a 12-year-old girl at that time. And yeah, the I think the a
Well, she
piece
was
of
underage though. Wasn't that the thing about the movie? Is that she was like way too young to be playing that role? Like she wasn't 18, which
oh yeah,
today, if
she
you were to,
definitely wasn't 18. Yeah, yeah, she was
yeah,
underage playing an underage prostitute. And then I think it seems kind of like the PTSD aspect of Robert De Niro's character, that c- contributes to him having more of an extreme reaction and kind of turning him into an incel when he gets rejected by that woman who's working for that guy's political campaign. And I think the PTSD perhaps contributes to his social awkwardness too, which is why when he takes her out on their first date, he literally takes her to a porn theater because he thinks that's like a normal thing to do. Yeah,
mm,
it's a lot of there are a lot of really interesting and controversial aspects of this movie.
yeah.
So
It's also weird that you don't really find out much of why. Like the story picks up like him, you know, already. You could assume that he was been a taxi driver for like 10 years in. You know what I mean? It doesn't like go through like him as a young boy or his history or why how he got to being how he was. So yeah, you
yeah,
just kind of like the story picks up here, and you're kind of just yeah going along with it.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
for sure. So what do you think about the movie in general, Dusty?
I thought that saxophone music was pretty annoying. This was, I just gotta say, this was the first time I watched it. I had not seen it before this chat was scheduled, so I
Oh,
went ahead
right.
and checked,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, checked it out. And like movies from the 70s are definitely different. Like the pacing's different than what we expect from today.
Yeah.
Um, and it seems like the vulgarity seems forced. It didn't seem natural. If you know what I mean, because there's like a scene
Mm,
where Robert De Niro is driving Martin Scorsese um, in a cab, and
right.
maybe it's because Martin Scorsese is not like a legit actor. Maybe that's why it just didn't seem right to
Yeah.
me.
Well, I
but
would like, you mean you didn't buy how crazy he was being? Because I mean, I definitely got the impression that it seemed like there was something fucking mentally wrong with the character, but I think there was supposed to be. But you think that because are you saying that, or are you saying that you kind of had trouble buying that because he's not that great of an actor?
I think there's just a couple, things, probably a combination of both of those things.
Yeah, I think
So
Scorsese does this kind of. He's dramatic like that because he knows that people will watch the film. Because it's like back in the '70s, that traveled by word of mouth to get people into movies, right? You didn't have the internet back then, right? So if like I was saying earlier, they whatever, let's say it's the first movie that ever said the word cunt or something like that, right? You go to that film and wow, they said the word blah blah blah, even though there's probably no reason to say that word whatsoever in context. You know what I mean? But Scorsese, I feel like, yeah, it's forced, where a lot of that stuff is like shock value in order to sell the movie.
Hmm.
So I agree. I understand what you're saying, Dusty.
Yeah. Yeah, well the I mean this obviously this came long before Goodfellas or anything like that, which is all about romanticizing violence and just doing things for shock value, which Martin Scorsese tends to do in a lot of his movies too. And like and there's there isn't any mob stuff in this one, but of course there's the guy becoming a mass shooter, and there's probably less violence than some of Martin Scorsese's other movies, but there's still super dark aspects like the underage prostitution and all that stuff. And I like how this is this is like a really character driven movie in terms of exploring the psychology of Robert De Niro's character. And it kind of was like a darker approach to it, especially in comparison to something like Goodfellas, which is kind of like almost a comedy in some ways at times. Like this is kind of more. It's more like the tone of The Departed, except The Departed is more about kind of corrupt cops and the mob and stuff like that, which is more like the standard type of content that Martin Scorsese that does movies about for the most part nowadays. Like other than Wolf of Wall Street, after Goodfellas, he kind of became known as like the mob movie guy, right?
And I think he's like known as that in Hollywood. Like if you know you're Julia Roberts and somebody hands you a script and says it's Scorsese, you know what you know, it's not going to be a romantic comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, because I think Scorsese has been kind of how do you put it? He's become a dinosaur recently. Like I know he criticizes like streaming platforms and says those aren't like award-winning worthy movies.
Oh yeah, and he said I
He's kind
saw
of behind the
Boomer's got a
times.
boomer.
I saw Daniel Green, that booktuber you and I follow, Dusty, talk a few times about how Martin Scorsese said that Marvel films are not real movies, they're theme park rides. So yeah, it's kind of a boomer in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess he was a groundbreaker at in this era, but
Hmm.
nowadays he's I don't think he's making anything. He's just too old. But
I
Well, he
guess
like
made
the
that.
go ahead.
I was gonna say that last movie he made was like super long and it
Yeah,
wasn't.
The Irishman. That
Yeah,
was
that's right.
on
oh yeah,
that was on Netflix. That was on a streaming platform. So maybe he's caved a little bit in terms of that, but that's the only one that he's done on a streaming platform.
yeah, but the Irishman, like it was just old ass dudes who were like
Yeah, yeah.
still kind
Yeah,
of
it wasn't.
gangstery.
Yeah, it wasn't that great of a film, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's a boomer, right? So I don't know. A lot of those people.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's not one of my favorite Scorsese movies, but I think it's interesting that he did kind of like a different approach to the mob movie with that one, and that he's showing the darker aspects with really similar actors like Robert De Niro, who is glorifying violence in Goodfellas and the casino, etc., is actually showing the consequences, like how he ends up killing Al Pacino, who is his friend, and how he loses his family members because they're alienated by how violent he is, and then he ends up just being old and lonely and spending Christmas by himself.
Yeah, because some of the movies he did make are actually biopics. Like Goodfellas is based off of a true account.
Right.
Because Ray Liotta's character, he had actually went into witness protection, and that movie is kind of based off of his story. The guy that I forgot the name of the real guy, but
Henry Hill, I think.
yeah, Henry Hill. There you go. And I think that The Departed is also based off of like a real Irish like gangster as
Oh
well.
yeah, I think it might actually. I'm gonna look that up. I think it might actually be based on a French film that's based on truth.
Yeah, so I don't know. I do like some of his older movies, but I think he's kind of past his prime. Um, he's not going. He didn't go the route of Tarantino, who I think is going to stop making movies because he thinks his newer movies are going to be terrible. So he's just not going to make any.
Yeah,
I
that's
think that's
fair.
unfortunate, but because I don't know. I think Tarantino still has it. But
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more Tarantino movies. That's a cool thing of him to do, though. Like, it means he's afraid of selling out, so he has some integrity. But yeah, I would like to see more Quentin Tarantino films too. The what I wasn't the biggest fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though. I know I don't think we had talked about that before, but I watched it relatively recently when it was on Netflix, and that's not one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino films. I like it's basically all about the massive build up to the violent ending where it's this alternative history bit where the Marilyn Manson, or not Marilyn Manson, Charles Manson disciples go to the wrong house and don't and they mix the houses up and go to Leonardo DiCaprio's character's house instead of Sharon Tate's house.
so it's kind of like the Inglorious Bastards, like an alternate history take.
Yeah, kind of like that. I like Inglorious Bastards a lot more though.
Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, the violence in this movie, especially the end, is pretty crazy. I thought it was like super impractical. Because I didn't like he gets shot in the neck. I was like, this guy shouldn't be like running around and shooting people after that. But okay, I'll kind of have to shelve my disbelief there. But
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
there's
that's an interesting aspect too, that he Robert De Niro's character was going to do, he was planning to do a mass shooting at that political event for that politician who that woman is working for, who rejected him, but then he like sees the cops and gets nervous and runs away, and then he goes and ends up like killing a couple of Johns and the security guard and the pimp played by Harvey Keitel at that building, right?
yeah.
Was
So
that
that
Sybil Shepherd? Is that who that girl was? I forget.
I
Who's the
Oh,
blonde girl?
so.
I'm not sure.
I
I'll look it
believe
up.
so. Yeah, but I know as far as like the character, I didn't view him as a hero, even
Yeah,
as
me
what he
neither.
did at the end, because the girl didn't ask him at all to save him.
No.
Um, like there are people like I don't know what her situation is. She never really like elaborated on why she was doing what she was doing.
Yeah, we just know that she didn't like her home life and she really didn't want to go back to it. So you could speculate and say maybe she had an abusive childhood, maybe she had awful parents, and her her parents said that they appreciated her going back to them, but like you said, we
Well,
don't
that
really
was at
know.
the ending, which I don't even know if it's like a real ending.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to talk about too, especially in the very last scene when and I just looked it up and you're right, Chris, that was Sybil Shepherd. When that very last scene when after Robert De Niro's character has gotten away, oh, Travis Bickle, that's his name. Yeah,
Hmm.
when he's gotten away with the shooting and Sybil Shepherd gets into his cab at the end of the film, there's just there's so many things that seem kind of weird about that, where she's like happy and approving of him having done that mass shooting, that it makes me question whether he's hallucinating that or something like that. And that's interesting too. It reminds me of a comparison to Joker as well, because we know there's more of that aspect in Joker, where Joaquin Phoenix's character, we find out towards the maybe like 3/4 towards the end of the movie that he's been hallucinating this entire relationship with this girl who he thought he was dating. And but there's less of that. It seems like he's actually, Travis Bickle is seeing reality for what it is in this movie. But I wonder if at the end of it, if he is kind of hallucinating that, or he's hallucinating the way the interaction actually goes. Because now that I think of it, guy who play the guy who plays Frank, the father on Everybody Loves Raymond, who is his buddy in Taxi Driver, he says, "Oh look, you got a customer." So yeah, what do you guys think about that ending?
The ending reminds me of the ending of The Fountainhead. Like, it's just completely impractical and does not reflect reality at all. Like, if you remember in the Fountainhead, there's a trial, and Howard Roark. I don't know if you've read this book. It's like the Ayn Rand book.
Yeah, I've read it.
Well,
Actually,
anyway, you
like,
know, he
I
goes to trial for burning down like um like some development that he made, and he gets off in the book like nonsensically. He doesn't get sentenced or anything, because he made some stupid speech. But it kind of reminds me of that. Like, there's no way um, that he would be called like a hero for just going and shooting up, like doing like vigilante work. Um, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
Like, if you
justify at
go and
all. I
shoot
mean,
up a bunch of like pimps and and even like the dude that owned the hotel, he wasn't like he may have been complicit in all of that shit, but he wasn't like an actual pimp. He was just had like a working relationship with the pimps. So it's like, yeah, no, there's no way, man, that he would be a hero. It just doesn't make sense to
yeah,
me.
he's only a hero because like part of his radicalization has made him like super conservative in terms of his moral values. Like you were saying, there's like the only person that he kills that's arguably guilty is that John, who literally is going to pay to have sex with a fucking child again. But then like the security guard and the guy who owns the building, at least those two for sure, it doesn't seem like they've done anything wrong, or at least nowhere near anything as wrong as being a pedophile. And you know, a pimp is the pimp is probably like morally culpable too, because he's prostituting a child, but he's not as bad as an actual pedophile too. So it seems like that at least and then the security guard is just a security guard. Again, he's working for a pimp, but they're the like obviously the scale of morality is that the the actual John is the one who's the most morally guilty by far. And if he just went up and shot up the people at the political rally, people probably would have seen like it would have made more sense to see him as a hero. So it only makes sense that people see him as a hero for this people having this like conservative moral values for society. So I wonder if that like him coming off as the hero, even though he's clearly like a fucked up mentally unstable murderer, is meant to be some sort of critique of that sort of moral perspective.
Well, I think like all his own. I think everything revolves around his own ego and how he feels about things. Like, I don't
yeah,
think
because
he's
he's
particularly conservative, because we saw like what he goes to fucking porn theaters and whacks off and like
Yeah,
tries
I
to take
guess.
this woman to a porn theater. Like, I don't think
And
he's
it doesn't
particularly
make sense
conservative.
because I was thinking, like, in particular, the most clear example of this is when that politician gets into the car who he's become a fan of because that woman is working for him, and he goes on this rant about how disgusting the city is and how there's all this degeneracy and and that kind of shit, and people who just disgust him morally. I guess that's more of just like a hatred for society that ends up making him radicalizing him into a violent response to it. I guess that's not really like a conservative moral value thing. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so
Or he
he's
was like, I was just gonna say, the relationship that he has with Sybil first, right? It's like a couple dates and it doesn't go too well. So it's almost as if he like fucked up there, but he kind of like, he goes back to like wait outside the office for like a lengthy period of time. So he's almost becomes like a stalker, right? But he
Yeah.
he was
doesn't
a
really. He
stalker
moves.
before he even met the girl.
Yeah, he stalked her first. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're
Because
right.
remember,
That's
the
right.
white Afro man was like, "Hey, who's this guy outside?"
Yeah.
70s white
And then
Afro
he goes,
man alerted Sybil of this dude just like sitting in a cab outside. So the guy was like inselling it before he even met her in person.
True.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, you're right. It is a giant leap to go from that fucked up, like not fucked up, but like a relationship that's broken, to him trying to rectify and become like a saint and save um, Jodie Foster's kind of like character to a murderer.
Hmm.
See, I saw the movie like I think it was like mid 20s, and at the time it was like, you know what I mean. I was younger and like, wow, shock value again. It would be interesting. I wish I could have watched it through like a lens like Dusty, like he just watched recently, haven't never watched it back then. Because you got to remember, like this movie was kind of like probably culturally different in where women were portrayed as like, um, the business character was Sybil Shepherd, and then the porn actress, or the sorry, not the porn actress, the prostitute played
Prostitute.
by.
Jodie
Yeah, so
Foster.
you got two different dynamics there at the time, right? And everybody puts up the movie as like, didn't it win Academy Awards? And
It's a good question. I'm gonna look that up.
like it's critically acclaimed, right? People um like
Yeah,
in
for
my town
sure.
here,
Yeah.
they were gonna re-show it on original film again, like at the cinema here, right?
Oh,
So it's like,
cool.
yeah, so it's still like relevant culturally. It's not like it's a movie that's been canceled, but I think this. I should actually watch it again to see if it still holds up. Do you know what I'm getting at? Versus, like,
Yeah.
I think it
It
was like,
holds it holds up to me, man. I actually it's one
yeah,
of those movies where there's so much going on where to me I noticed things the second time I watched it that I didn't notice the first time I watched it.
gotcha.
Yeah, so it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Supporting Actress and Score. But they did not win. So they
And
were
then it
nominated at the Academy Awards.
and then it
But
won
hey,
a
Dusty,
bunch of it won a bunch of smaller awards too, like the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, for example, and Newark Film Critics Circle Awards, Los Angeles Film Critics Association Award, etc.
yeah.
Hmm.
Hey, but Dusty, do you think that's worth any of those nominations as somebody that's watched it now? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'd have to see what was it nominated against? Like what were the movies that were Best Picture
Yeah,
at the time? Um, I could probably just take a quick look to see which movies it was in contention with. And this
yeah,
was
fair
what
enough.
was the
But
year? 70 what?
I think it was
yeah,
76.
73.
76?
Yeah.
So it was okay, yeah. Rocky, All the President's Men, Bound for
Oh,
Glory
wow.
Network, and Taxi Driver. So of
Wow.
course Rocky got it.
Yeah.
Um,
Rocky is like the Rocky is the one film where I think Sylvester Stallone actually gives a really brilliant acting performance. Actually, the first Rambo movie too, First Blood. Now, like in more recent years, he's just become this action hero guy. And he's like, fire guns, I'm Sylvester Stallone. But in Rocky and the first Rambo movie, he actually gave really brilliant performances, I think.
Mm. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was worthy of being nominated because it's a very complex movie, and what I mean by complex, it's not morally um, concrete about the message that it's trying to tell.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
Travis Bickle, I don't think is a hero. He's definitely someone that's been shaped by society, and if we're talking like New York in the late '70s. That wasn't like the best place. It's not like the New
No.
York of today. So I was just like watching this movie. It's like, man, New York just looks like complete shit.
Yeah.
um, and you know, there are other movies like that that kind of portray New York in that light. I think the more recent one is, well, it's not New York, but Chicago is like Joker, but
Hmm.
that's kind of a portrayal of the big cities in the early '70s, but and late '80s or early '80s. But yeah, New York was not a nice place at this time. So I could see how he would kind of see his circumstance and kind of feel that he was like morally superior. But I think it's just kind of a product of the society. Like he had nobody really socially to talk to. Like even when he was trying to get advice from Wizard, who is Frank from uh, Everybody
Everybody
Loves
loves
Raymond.
Raymond.
Like
Yeah.
that interaction is super awkward. Like he doesn't have any close friends or
Hmm.
anybody to like riff with. And when he tries to talk to Wizard, that conversation is just really weird. It almost feels like Wizard doesn't really know what to say to him because
Yeah.
he's just not a normal dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's like another aspect about of how Travis Bickle gets radicalized partially by his social awkwardness because he can't connect with people, and then that radicalizes him. And I think part of the like how he's a product of society, like you were saying too, is related to how he has PTSD from being in the Vietnam War too. And then I wonder if part of the aspect of him being being seen as a hero, even though he did like unjustified vigilante violence, is that he gets respect just for being a veteran, even though he's gone fucking crazy because he has PTSD and he's socially awkward.
and this is the reason he wants to kill like the candidate. Is it because he got rejected by the chick?
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, it seems like that seems like an incel aspect of it. Like he's lashing out at the politician because she rejects him. And then it's interesting because it seems like a kind of a different motivation to go after the Johns and the pimp and the security guard who are prostituting Jodie Foster's character. That seems like uh, like a motivation that makes less sense, like reacting by killing Johns and pimps instead of anyone that had anything even indirectly to do with his rejection by that chick.
Yeah. He doesn't take any of his anger out on Jodie Foster right after, right? It's
Yeah,
almost as if he saves her, or sorry,
yeah,
he wants to save her.
yeah,
It
yeah,
seems
exactly.
like he's kind of in a place where society itself has rejected him. And in order to get back at society, he wants to do some type of powerful act. So, you know, the first powerful act he attempts is the assassination attempt. And the second one is going after like the the operation. So I don't know, man. I feel like these types of people can go either way. Like any of these people that do like these mass shootings could either do a lashing out, but it's always a lashing out because of social rejection. So the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that happens is he gets rejected and he lashes out with violence. The second thing that happens is he gets rejected again because if you remember, Jodie Foster's character really wants nothing to do with him, and he
Mm-hmm.
thinks he's a weirdo, and she wants to get her money and and all that. And it's so weird too because she's like 12 in the movie, so
Mm-hmm.
it's very very uncomfortable when she's trying to do her job. Uh, but I think it's social rejection either time because I think he gives her an out, which was giving her. Doesn't he give her like money or something, or he like gives her an out? It's like here, do this and that, and be done with it. But
Yeah, I think so.
she continues to stay in that profession, even after he gives her some money to like get away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost when he gets rejected by women, and he got rejected in a different way in both instances, he
Mm-hmm.
lashes out with violence. So that's kind
Yeah.
of like the
Yeah.
incel angle that I
Yeah.
saw concerning this character.
Yeah, certainly. And with Jodie Foster's character too, you can see that she's conflicted about it because at one point she's talking to Harvey Keitel about how she wants to leave and stop being a prostitute, but he kind of like coaxes her back into doing it. And then there's more creepy aspects to do with that relationship because it's clear that he's like kind of her boyfriend in a way too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how the pimp thing works. It's like they build some type of relationship with these girls and then coax them into doing like the sexual acts for money. I need to read like one of these books by these former pimps to see what the fuck like these how these social dynamics work because they never made sense to me personally. But maybe I just have to read about it and see what the fuck it's all about.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, and
it's like
they're being
North Korea where they like you can't if you were to stray away from the pack, you won't be fed, you won't have any work, you know what I mean? Like they provide for these girls too, not just like, shelter and everything, jewelry, all that makeup, when you do that and yeah, I'm sure that it becomes like a situation that they make it hard for them to leave. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that really like deceives them into staying too. And the thing that I was thinking of too when watching this is that it's like the absolute worst portrayal of prostitution because it's the child prostitute and there's a pimp. But with prostitution, that's the worst type of that there can be if there's a pimp. With a lot of prostitutes, they don't have pimps, and then they have more they have much more personal freedom, and it's like there's more of a reason to believe that they're actually prostitutes because they're enjoying what they're doing and they're making just tons of fucking money by getting paid to have sex with guys. So there's much less of a coercive relationship there.
Mm. I forgot there is one instance where Travis Bickle does shoot somebody. Um, I forgot about the stick up
Oh,
at
yeah,
that convenience store.
he goes to that convenience store and that guy's getting robbed. So the guy has a gun, so he shoots the guy that's robbing the store, and then the convenience store owner basically says, "You get out of here, I'll get rid of the body," which is like it shows how much of the state of anarchy there is in New York at the time with the atmosphere of this movie, right?
Yeah, because like he tells the owner, "Is like, oh, the gun's unregistered. I can't be caught with this gun." And the store owner just like, "Oh, get out here. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it."
Right.
Like, well, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, definitely, man. Uh on a different
yeah,
note,
for random convenience store guy to take the fall for you, like
yeah,
that's
Exactly. Well, because he saved it, he saved his store and perhaps his life too, because the thief had a gun. But obviously, like they don't even know each other either, and it's like that's an aspect too, especially with Travis Bickle killing that guy. It seems like just feeling like a hero is one of the only ways he gets some sort of self-worth. So it's like being violent and stopping the bad guy makes him feel better about himself because he's rejected by society and rejected by women.
Right. You looking at me?
You talking to me, punk?
Talking to me?
That's like one of the most iconic parts when he's just practicing that line in the mirror. And then
And then he's like
also
using
one of the
his
most
concealed gun
yeah,
contraption.
and one of the most shocking parts too is after he gets into that shootout and he collapses on the couch next to Jodie Foster. I put that in the thumbnail for this video. There's him doing like the gun sign on his head and he has this like crazy grin on his face. That's a really like
That's when
fucking
the cops
shocking
come
part.
in.
Yeah,
Why the
exactly.
hell did he give himself a mohawk? Like, I don't
Yeah,
understand
I
that.
thought that was weird too. It's like I'm gonna go do a mass shooting, so I gotta give myself a mohawk. I don't know. Maybe he wants
It's
it's
in rebel mode.
yeah. Maybe it's an aspect of wanting to stand out more. Uh, oh, on a different note, we were talking about The Departed earlier, and it actually is a remake and partially based on a true story. The Departed, I remember seeing this when I first saw the film. It was a remake of the popular Hong Kong film Mu Gan Du called Internal Affairs in English. And also the story itself is not based on a true story, but Jack Nicholson's character is Frank Costello is loosely based on Whitey Bulger.
Mhm.
That's
Whitey
interesting.
Bulger was apparently part of the MK Ultra.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, experiments. Apparently, that's
Oh, I
how
never
it's
heard
shown.
that
Shit,
before.
but
That's interesting. Did you read that in that
no,
book that
no, I
Joe
heard it on
Rogan?
Rogan. I think
Oh,
one time he
okay.
said that. I forget who was on. Maybe that FBI guy that he always has on, or whatever. Mike Hart, or no, I
Oh
forget.
yeah,
Anyway,
I know who you're talking about. I
The
forget his name
CIA
too.
guy.
yeah, the CIA guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It
yeah.
wasn't from that book that Joe Rogan talked to
No,
the author about how Charles Manson was drugged by the CIA and they taught him tactics and that kind of shit.
yeah, chaos. No, it wasn't
Yeah.
that. But that's a great book. If yeah,
Yeah, I want to read that. It should be interesting.
Did you know in one of the Watchmen comic books titled Before Watchmen, Travis Bickle shows up in the comic book?
That would be interesting.
Yeah, he is a minor character in a comic book called Before Watchmen,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's a comic book that follows the character Rorschach.
Oh, that's interesting.
And in the
Rorschach
comic book, he gets
Rorschach
into
is
a
kind of
cab
similar. Rorschach is kind of similar to Travis Bickle.
a little bit. Yeah, he's an
He's like
asshole.
he's like disgusted by society and a vigilante and rejected by everyone. Just those aspects.
Yeah, I think that he's probably doesn't have these social ineptitude issues though that Travis Bickle has. Like
Yeah.
like Rorschach can actually carry normal conversations. I wouldn't call them normal conversations, but they're conversations that are kind of within the realm of a normal, not normal, but something you would expect. Like, hey, if a Wolverine started talking to some dude, that's kind of what you would expect him to say. But Travis Bickle seems completely unpredictable in his social interactions. Like, it's like, what the fuck is this guy gonna do now?
Yeah,
With
Rorschach has a much more strict moral code, and
yeah,
he's less erratic and unpredictable.
yeah, he's kind of, you know, cranky and crotchety and all that, like boomerish. But he does have a very strict like moral code that he follows. At least in the Watchmen comic book, he does, and in the show. I never seen the actual series. I have to probably check that out sometime. But
Yeah, I want to see that
anyways,
too. I've seen the movie and I've read the graphic novel, but I haven't seen the show.
yeah, and he's a pretty astute investigator. Travis Bickle just seems kind of I don't know what you want to call him, but he has like no marketable skills aside from being able to drive a car at night. um, but that's about it. Yeah, but man, this character is just confounding. I just could not figure out how you're supposed to feel about this character.
I mean, it really seemed to me like I got the impression that maybe Martin Scorsese was trying to critique the idea of a vigilante hero. Like he's supposedly heroic for killing all of these people, but you see the psychology behind the character that he's like fucking mentally unstable and erratic. And if he hadn't done this, he would have killed a whole bunch of even more innocent people than like the security guard and the building owner at that political rally, and that someone could be seen as a victim or a hero, but it depends on their psychological motivations as to whether they're actually a hero or a monster masquerading as a hero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would guess yes, this character does have significant PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wondering if this is also kind of a critique of the effects of PTSD. I
Yeah.
know it's not like super in your face, at least the PTSD aspect, but
Well, I mean, an aspect of that, yeah, you're right that it's not in your face, but it is a major aspect of your character. It's just not like as explicit. Like his constant insomnia is why he wants to drive a cab at night, presumably because of his PTSD, which is why he can't sleep. But yeah, we don't get any like war flashbacks or anything like that.
right. So he does. I know that it's kind of ambiguous about because they don't go into his past much at all in this. It's very um, much in the present. He doesn't have any social interactions where he can talk to people about his past.
Yeah.
And whenever he goes, I know he interviews for the taxi driver job, and he's pretty mum with details about his life. He doesn't say much other than he was in the army. But yeah, this character is definitely mental.
Yeah.
The movie came out during Vietnam War, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe near the end of the Vietnam War. So maybe it was
Yeah.
kind of like maybe it was kind of like a hey, this is what happens with soldiers when they come back.
Yeah. Yeah, like how that's like an aspect of how he was a victim of his circumstances. And yeah, I think the critique of the Vietnam War is definitely a strong theme in this movie, especially given when it came out, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, it ended a year
The
before the
timing was there.
movie.
The
Like
timing
one
was there,
year.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah, that's certainly there. It certainly is because it ended a year before this movie came out. And it's pretty strange because when we talk about, I remember a lot. of the Vietnam movies, or at least movies critiquing the war, didn't come out till much later. So it's
Yeah, it was
interesting to
more.
see.
Yeah, it was more taboo to critique the Vietnam War during the war, right?
Well, I'm saying like in the media, like I'm saying like
Yeah.
no, there's definitely a lot of critiques of anti-war sentiment during the Vietnam. I think Vietnam probably had the most anti-war sentiment in modern history when we talk about U.S. wars. But it was critiqued like in mainstream media pretty quickly after the war ended. Because we didn't see like a movie about Iraq until what? How many years later? When did Jarhead come out?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
That's like the first like movie about the Iraq War, and that came out in 2005.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like the
Yeah,
main
the
Iraq War, and this was like the war ended pretty quickly, and I'm not talking about like the occupation. I'm talking about just like the meat and potatoes fighting um, part of the war. And Jarhead was pretty inoffensive when it
yeah.
came to the critique of what happened. It was just like, oh, I'm this bored Marine and I didn't get to snipe somebody because we have more fancy stuff that can kill people. So it wasn't like an offensive movie or a movie kind of critiquing that war in itself. But yeah, I'm wondering because we don't have many movies that are super mainstream that directly critique these wars, or at
Yeah,
least
definitely.
American wars. Like in
The
because
like
usually
the only other super hardcore critique of the Vietnam War, especially at the 70s that I can think of is Apocalypse Now, which we talked about before.
yeah, um, certainly that is a pretty dark movie,
Hmm.
and that I would consider that like a direct critique. But like I said, like the Vietnam War is that's the war that has a bunch of critique movies.
Hmm.
Like you have all these like how many freaking Vietnam movies we got? We got Full
Platoon.
Metal Jacket, we got Platoon, and all of these movies
Now,
except maybe um, there's that Mel Gibson movie about Vietnam. That's probably like the only Vietnam
what's
movie
the
I've
one?
seen that didn't have a like that didn't show Vietnam in a bad light.
What's the one with Michael J. Fox? Is that one about Vietnam too?
What's that one?
Uh, I think I know what you mean.
It's I can't think of the name of the movie. That's why it's bugging me right now.
It's
I
called
didn't.
Casualties of
Casual.
War.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah,
that would.
that's a
Yeah, I think
Vietnam War.
that's a critique of the Vietnam War.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. There's been a bunch of them, right?
Yeah, because the Vietnam War is easy to critique. You know, the vast majority of the populace didn't have a good view of that war, especially
Yeah.
towards the end, and then especially after we found out how we got into it in the first place.
Yeah, Gulf of Tonkin incident.
Yeah, so it was beyond
That was a
shady,
literally proven conspiracy theory.
right? So, but all these other wars, like we don't have this same mass media disdain for it. It's just
Hmm.
this particular war, and I don't know
Yeah.
why they don't treat the other wars the same way.
Yeah. It's like more of a taboo nowadays, right? Like there have been critiques of Afghanistan and Iraq wars, but they tend to not happen until the wars are over for the most part, like you said. And there is certainly a hell of a lot of pro Afghanistan and Iraq war movies and stuff like that, I would say.
Yeah, like that sniper movie.
Yeah.
With the guy who lied about all of his sniper kills or whatever.
Oh, American
Uh,
Sniper. Yeah.
yeah, he got sued. His estate got sued by Jesse Ventura, and Jesse Ventura won
Yeah, yeah.
because he lied in the book.
Yeah, I
He
lied
said
about
that.
getting into a fight with Jesse Ventura and lied about how many people he killed, like to exaggerate it for his own ego or some shit like that. And uh
Yeah,
and then like I think also bragged about killing people when the military got sent in to help with Hurricane Katrina or something like that.
yeah. He allegedly went on top of the Astrodome and was killing looters.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Supposedly, like, there's no way to corroborate that, but yeah, there's that. That's and that even that movie is like positively showing this dude. It's even though a lot of people know that he's a fraud.
Right.
I didn't know he was a fraud. That's crazy. I'll have to look into
Oh,
that.
you didn't?
No,
If you want to
I
learn more about it, I would suggest listening to the last time Jesse Ventura went on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
he talks about it. That's where I heard about it in the first place. I've heard Joe Rogan talk about it on his podcast before.
I'll have to check that out. I barely know the plot of that. Like I know I've seen that movie. I just forget it. But yeah, I'll have to look into that. I didn't know he was a fraud.
Yeah,
Well, I'm pretty sure he was a pretty good sniper, but he lied about a lot of
He
shit
didn't.
in his
Yeah, he
book. And that movie
exaggerated.
is based off of his book that he wrote.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I read the book too. They're pretty similar, I would say.
Yeah, I have not read the book. I read some other books, Zero Dark 30, which is pretty good.
Yeah,
That was a movie too, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, there's a movie. A
yeah.
movie came out.
That's a really fucking pro-war movie too, for sure.
It is like I'm not gonna lie, it is a pro-war movie, but the book is just kind of like supposed to be an account of what happened. But even though I don't really consider Zero Dark 30 that pro-war because they do talk about like torture, and
Oh, okay.
I remember Zero Dark 30 being very specific about how torture is basically morally wrong.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I
So I
forgot that part.
yeah, I do think that they do treat that part well.
Okay.
Um, and then there's that other movie about Benghazi. I forgot what it's called.
I'm not sure.
And there was also a book about it, and I believe that guy went on Rogan. If he didn't go on Rogan, I think I got it from Jocko's podcast. I just don't remember.
Okay. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, there's quite a few of those movies. Oh, it's called 13 Hours. That's the name of the movie.
Oh, okay.
The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi.
Hmm. Yeah.
John Krasinski is in it.
Oh, okay.
Pablo Schreiber is in it, the guy who plays
Yeah.
Master Chief.
After The Office, John Krasinski started doing a lot of serious roles. Like he plays Jack Ryan in that show, and of course he's in the Quiet Place movies, which are fucking awesome movies, and he does an awesome job of playing a serious character in those.
Yeah, so I think 13 Hours is, I wouldn't consider it like a pro-war movie because it's not a war that's being depicted. It's basically like a international incident, Benghazi. I'm trying to depict what happened there.
Hmm.
But yeah,
So
Vietnam. There's so many movies that shit on Vietnam. It's
yeah,
like
definitely, definitely.
it's like
Yeah.
everybody hated Vietnam. And I'm wondering, ah, if the coverage we had for Afghanistan was similar, I bet we had a lot of movies shitting on Afghanistan also.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So in terms of like the the incel and mass shooter aspects of these movies of Taxi Driver, do you think it's kind of like prophetic? Because I think this movie is kind of prophetic in a way, and I don't know if this movie, like mass shooters have cited this movie as inspiring them or something like that, but it's kind of like prophetic in the way that nowadays a lot of mass shooters seem to be incels, as happens in the movie, and it's and then a lot of mass shooters like write manifestos that sound like they're Travis Bickle, basically.
Well, trying to think if anybody used Taxi Driver as an inspiration.
Yeah, see, to me, like mass shooting really started. I know there was mass shootings before Columbine, but Columbine was kind of like the genesis of mass shootings culturally, right? It was the first one that
Yeah.
was like, you know, the most killed. It was televised. The internet had just started around that time, you know, and it was like I feel like every kind of mass shooting after that has not been a copycat, but it's been more of that. Unfortunately, that I was just gonna say,
What's wrong? What's funny?
No, I'll get to it when you're done,
Oh,
but there's
okay.
a little crazy story about Taxi Driver and a shooting.
Oh, okay. Go ahead,
no,
Chris.
I was just gonna say I feel like a lot of this is like a lot of mass shootings are like fame searching. Do you know what I mean? Like even not
Mm-hmm.
all of them, but you know these guys when they, yeah, they know they leave manifestos behind. For example, right? You know, it's they the last one, the guy in Uvalde, he was like Facebook living half of it, right? So they kind of like they know what they're about to partake in is something that people are going to like the media is just going to take with and run with, and it's you know what I mean. So I think like Taxi Driver, 1970s movie. You don't have any mass shootings between 70s, 80s, 90s. Fast forward to Columbine, which I think was early 2001, 2002, if I'm not mistaken, and then boom, mass shootings just explode. Now, you can make the case that they explode because now the media is paying more attention to them. Maybe they occurred more than that, but I don't really remember hearing about people walking into high schools or grade schools with AK-47s and just having at it before Columbine, right? So I wouldn't really say Taxi Driver was influential in that. I think that like incel culture more kind of grew with like you know platforms like 4chan and online culture, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
whole bunch of places that it kind of you know infests in. But um, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, incels have probably always existed. It's just they've probably gone different platforms or different ways to go about their anger or whatever. Like guys have always, some guys, not all guys, right? But there's some guys that just like you know have it out for women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a weird.
Uh,
I remember hearing about this once. Have you ever heard about the daughter? Um, Not complex, but there's something about general or guys that have daughters, right? Like you're less likely to not be an incel, but you know you're more to be understanding of women, even though you might have sisters and mothers, and we all do, right? But those men that have daughters, they're more open minded to you know, just the way that women think a little bit better.
oh,
I
okay.
forget where I
No, I
heard that.
hadn't
It was
heard
on a
that.
podcast or something like that. But yeah,
Oh,
there's
okay.
like a thing
That
to
that
it.
that kind of makes sense though. Yeah, like if you have a daughter, you would think that you would have more understanding for women and not like just demonizing all women or something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just
interesting.
talking about mass shootings, um, there's actually a pretty big jump in the severity of them. Uh, so we're talking about by year. Um, there weren't really many in the 70s. There were just there's one that was called the Easter Sunday Massacre, which was 11 people. That was in 75. I don't know the circumstances of that one, And there was one that's the Wilkes Bar in 82. But the biggest one that happened after that for a while was the McDonald's massacre, which was in 84. And that happened, it's just 21 people got killed.
Oh,
And yeah, and that was like a couple miles from where I used to live,
oh wow.
in San Diego.
Oh
But
yeah, I looked it up by the way, and Columbine happened in 1999.
yeah,
Wasn't
so
there?
there weren't any big significant like mass shootings since that McDonald's massacre until Columbine rolled around.
Okay. And have there been a lot more since Columbine?
Well, most of the mass shootings that have high numbers are the ones that are more recently
Okay.
performed. So, Las Vegas was 60. Pulse nightclub a year before was 49. Sandy Hook's 27. Sutherland Springs, the church shooting was 26. So the most recent mass shootings have had more higher death counts
Okay.
than the previous ones.
Yeah, like in Taxi Driver, I think Travis Bickle kills 3 people.
Well,
Is
he
it 3 people
kills
or 4 people?
in that one little shooting, I think he kills Harvey Keitel, right? And then he
Yeah,
kills
the
like
security guard and the John. Is there one other person or is it those
the
3?
hotel guy,
Oh
or
yeah,
does he just shoot his fingers off, or does he actually like kill him?
I think he kills him too.
Okay, so we could say about
Yeah,
4 people in that little
yeah.
shooting.
That like almost barely qualifies as a mass shooting, especially by today's standards. If the with the higher
Well, I think
death count, like
four
you're
is
talking about.
the minimum requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, so all these newer shootings, it's just they're more frequent than they were before. Like there's shootings and there would be years in between. Like I think ever since 2009, that's when you saw them pretty frequently. Like even between Columbine and Virginia Tech, that's like 8 years.
Okay. Didn't you
And then
say a long time ago when we were talking about Bowling for Columbine that in response to that, uh, assault rifles were outlawed for 10 years and it led to a decrease in mass shootings?
well, that was before Columbine. So
Oh, that was
during
before
Columbine,
Columbine. Okay.
no, during Columbine, the ban was in effect.
Oh,
Because
okay.
Bush is the one that repealed it. So during the 90s, during the Clinton era, assault weapons were banned in the US.
Okay.
So we didn't get like a really big jump in deaths until the Virginia Tech shooting. And that was 32. And he was using like a military style rifle.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there was another one that had a lot of death too, called the Luby shooting. That was in 1991. But he wasn't using any rifles. He was just using pistols.
Okay.
But yeah, it seems like the kill count has gone up significantly. Um, and looking at the choice of firearms, seems like semi-automatic rifle seems to be the good choice for most of these.
Okay. Hmm. So with the most recent shootings, the Uvalde and Buffalo shooters, I know the Buffalo shooter at least had a manifesto and seemed like he was an incel, right? I think, but I'm not sure about those details in relation to the Uvalde shooter.
Well, usually these people end up being incels. Is how do you carry out a romantic relationship or social life with those types of views? I don't think it's very easy. So when we're talking about the Buffalo shooter, this guy was only 18 and he had this ideology.
Oh
And
wow.
from what I was told, like he was basically an incel. He didn't have like many social connections, and he was like one of those awkward types, same as the guy from Uvalde. Um, Awkward, not many social connections. Everybody thought he was a weirdo. And that tends
Hmm.
to happen with these school shooters. All of these school shooters tend to be bullied. They have no game with the ladies, and everybody makes fun of them.
Yeah.
And they just are not. They're not geared into how to socially interact with people. It's
Hmm.
And there could be many factors. Most of it probably stems from the environment. Um, and I don't know. Maybe I think Columbine, one of the kids was supposed to be in therapy or something.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, well, some of these kids, I think the Parkland one, or was it the Sandy Hook? I know one of them was on meds and then went off meds and then started shooting people.
Oh, okay. Also, I was just thinking of this too. It's it's pretty much like this has been studied and it's been pretty much proven that a lot of particularly right wingers blame violent video games and violent movies and stuff. Like they probably blame movies like Taxi Driver for mass shootings back in the 70s, but those things don't actually radicalize the overwhelming majority of people to violence. In fact, they help people be less violent most of the time because it's like a virtual release. It can be a virtual release for violent urges. I've had that experience before. Like when I back in the day when I was working at a movie store. I was working on Christmas Eve one night and I was constantly busy for my entire shift. And and it made me hate people. So when I got home from work, I just played Grand Theft Auto for an hour and slaughtered a whole bunch of people in a video game.
Well, even in GTA, when I played it, I tried not to kill innocents. Like, I never did
Oh,
that on
okay.
purpose. I just,
I
I'm not.
did all the time.
There's something to be said
I'll,
about testosterone, though, for sure, because like the main common denominator here is they're all male, right? So there's something
right.
about
Yeah.
male that I don't know what's in us, but it's like it's probably primal going back to when we were hunter gatherers. That as to why it's gotten
Something,
to such a
yeah, it's about
sorry, go
being
ahead.
male and has something to do with the fucking US. Like, I don't know why so many of these motherfuckers come from this country. I'm
Well,
not
I think
sure.
that's more of a numbers game. Like you guys have 400 million guns for a population of 300 million. So I mean, mass shootings happen all over the world. It's just that you guys have it happens more frequency because you guys have more guns.
And
Well, I don't
also
know.
another
There are other
aspect,
countries with guns.
another aspect that you and I talked about when we discussed Bowling for Columbine, Dusty, was that one of Michael Moore's major reasons that he talked about behind mass shootings and massive amounts of gun violence in the U.S. is that there's such a huge gun loving culture and the idea to solve your problems with violence and guns.
Yeah, I don't think in most places, like, I don't know. In Canada, would you find it odd if you saw like your neighbors posting on social media, toting like M16s and shit as like a badge of honor?
Probably. I mean, I know that especially here in Alberta, there are a lot of hunters, but like I don't really see people talking about it that much. Like they like hunting, but I don't really see that many people who are like nerding out about how all they have all these awesome guns or something like that.
I don't know, just like posing with guns. Like I almost feel that it's a superiority complex, like in full display. And it's like the short 5'4" dude with the giant truck. You know, I get kind of the same vibe from people that like to post themselves posing with guns online.
Overcompensating.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, like
But
of all things, it's probably a multi-layered cake, right? So it's you got the amount of guns, but you guys also have, not to say we don't have poverty here in Canada, but I feel like our poverty line is a little bit different in the United States, right? Like we have more social services up here, your universal health care, government programs in effect to help those that are really poor. You guys have a mix of like government doesn't do that much to help out. And you have like places like, Baltimore, south side of Chicago that we just don't have that at all in Canada, right? And that's yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, it's culture. Like it's many factors that as to why the United States leads the world in mass shootings. But yeah, who's to say if we were to have the same kind of like Second Amendment rights here in Canada, if our numbers wouldn't have gone up as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's
yeah,
But it's
probably
also like,
that probably contributes to the cultural aspect of it in the US, I bet, the Second Amendment being so important that it probably contributes to this gun-loving culture and the idea to solve problems with violence and guns.
it's also like before the podcast, I was saying about how the Americans are like, they're kind of like not a fuck you, but we were talking about what were we talking about before? We're Celsius and Fahrenheit and all those kind of
Oh
different
yeah,
metrics, right?
yeah.
And the Americans have always kind of been that way, and it makes sense, right? They were a culture or a country that was started by pretty much people fleeing from Europe, saying "fuck you" to this way of kings and queens and shit like that. We're gonna move over here and start something over here. So a lot of that kind of like fuck you mentality and that kind of like thinking different than other people. There's like kind of like I don't know what the word for it is, but it's like a drive. It's the same drive that, why the Americans did so well culturally with like technology and movies and that kind of stuff and other things, inventions, right? They lead the world in and medicine inventions. There are a lot of things they've have come out of the United States that have, greatly achieved the human race. They were the first to land on the moon, right? Space travel being another one of these things, right? But you don't get that out of Canada, New Zealand, anywhere otherwhere else. You only get that out of the United States because it took that kind of like these people fleeing from Europe to be like, fuck this, I'm gonna start something new over here. I'm doing it my way. Fuck the status
Yeah,
quo. You know what I mean? So there's something
yeah.
to that too, and then you throw in Second Amendment rights with 400 million guns, and now you have a bunch of Americans that are like, "Fuck, you're gonna do it my way."
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
something
That's
has to have changed though, because this wasn't really a problem 20 years ago or 30 years
no,
ago.
the internet changed that, and fame. Like I said, social media, all this kind of stuff, like Fox News, CNN. Just having these people be on the news is half the reason. Like Columbine started just at the break of the internet, right? And It, I would love to. It would be interesting to know if that, let's say the internet didn't exist at all yet. Let's put it back 10 years, right? Would if Columbine still have existed? Or let's say the internet starts today.
Well, the
They're still
internet was
doing the.
around, but we didn't have social
It
media
was.
yet.
Yeah, we didn't have
No,
social
but
media, and around 99 is when it started to become more popular and closer to being ubiquitous like it is now.
Yeah, because it started becoming very popular when the smartphone
For
yeah,
sure.
came
sorry. What
out.
I'm
Yeah.
getting at, the seeds of becoming famous for doing an act, whether really, really good or really, really cruel, that outrageously that act it was this starting to become like you could blow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how this blew up into the way it did, because it's something that's been happening to rejected young men. But how
Mhm.
is it so much worse that they're going to take up arms than it was in the past? Like
I think
the
I think
mass
you're right that
shootings.
Chris, that social media and that sort of thing increases the ability of fame that people can get for mass shooters. And then in terms of the incel aspect of it too, there's way more of a massive online culture for incels and like the red pill people and stuff like that. So there, it's easier for people to find communities in being incels and radicalizing themselves and shit like that.
But
Mhm.
at a young age, I feel like it's
Hmm.
harder to kind of fit in a social media world, in a TikTok world, right? Like men, and not just like in society in general, like Me Too, all that kind of stuff. I feel like men are seen not like in an evil light, but I feel like we're portrayed differently than we once were. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, there's plus. Well, there's that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I think with like a lot of things, like if something, you know, culture shifts or whatever, or things shift, and women start taking over more, and men go down a little bit further. Like men are no longer the providers, and you know what I mean. And now you have to have a man and a woman to provide for a family, which is
Hmm.
the way it is right now. But there's that hierarchy of the men providing for the family, and the caregiver, and the you bring home the bacon, all that kind of stuff is slowly being
Yeah,
gone
yeah,
away, right? So
yeah.
the
Different social roles and social values and interactions with people. Yeah.
That's right. Like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, like I would be out hunting. I'd be gathering food for all my family. I would be like, my wife would be home with
They'd
the
be
kids.
trapping
Fishing,
furs up in
we'd trapping
Canada.
furs. Yeah, there'd be
Getting
like it
those
would be
beaver pelts.
totally different than it is today, and for the better, obviously. But with that,
Hmm.
right, like Thomas Sowell, with good solutions are trade offs, and the trade off
Yeah,
for that is like
yeah.
men are slowly came down the hierarchy a little bit, but you know what I mean.
Well, what
Yeah.
I don't get about these incels is if they wanted to get it on, they could always pay for it.
Yeah, they could pay prostitutes. I think
Well, it's a
like
good reason, a good reason why it should be legalized.
yeah, I agree. It would probably contribute to, I think it would certainly contribute to less incels and might contribute to less mass shootings because of that. And
Yeah,
like you were saying,
lack
Chris,
of
too, I think that there are trade-offs too. Like uh incels and like red pill people do have kind of a kernel of a point, and then they get like fucking fly off the deep end with it. Like how like on dating apps, for example, basically those super fucking prioritize women. Like on Tinder or something, women will get like 300 matches a day, and the guy's like, "Oh, I got a match yesterday, and I got a match 3 days ago, or something like that."
yeah,
And then in like divorce proceedings or something, they often favor women. So there are some small things like that that favor women over men, but then they just fly off the handle with that and assume like women are evil and they're suppressing men and all this kind of shit.
yeah. Well, women have the ability to pick the cream of the crop now, right? Like years, 50, 100 years ago, it would be your best friend's sister's cousin or somebody in town that you knew locally within your Dunbar number that would hook you up with that future wife that you had, and you'd be married to them and have 10 kids. Well, that's all gone now, right? Now it's like the women they can swipe left and right, and they're swiping left and right, and they're picking the guys that are lawyers, buff, working out, 6'10". You know what I mean? They're picking out the
Yeah.
cream of the crop, and what's left? Those incel people that work at Burger King that sit on and masturbate to porn all day. You know what I mean? They're like they don't have any romantic relationships at all. They don't know what it's like to be with a woman. They don't know how to interact if a girl had a conversation with them for longer than 20 minutes, right? It's a totally different dynamic that has shifted this paradigm where we have again, women have moved up the ladder in the hierarchy now, where they're not the same as men, or a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on what subject you're talking about. But yeah, with that comes consequences. Men are, yeah, it's tough out there. I mean, especially if you're a young kid. And now girls aren't any better. I mean, if you read Heights and Greg Lukianoff's book, Coddling of the American Mind, young girls' suicide is like skyrocketing right now because of social media apps like Instagram, where they're bullying outside of school, and school hasn't stopped at 4 o'clock. Now it's gone on until 9 o'clock at night, and you're looking at how fat is she, and she's comparing you to what size she's wearing at, and blah blah blah. And so, there's a lot. The culture and online, TikTok, all this kind of garbage. I think we're kind of actually seeing the downsides to a lot of this shit now. Do you know what I mean? Like, with Facebook, and I know we're getting way off taxi right now, and I'm going on a tangent. But
this is related to mass shooters, which is a major piece of the movie, though. Yeah.
Yeah, so social media showed me, like, here's my dog, this is my girlfriend, look at me, here's my kid, birthday. Now it's become more of like political stuff, and it's really become a toxic nastiness where and I think we're seeing that, like, Facebook is like totally tanking right now. That's why they changed to Meta. That's why they're trying different things to bring back people, because they know that it's become this. It's like become the Kardashians everywhere now, right? Where everybody's like, all the girls online are like showing off their ass, which is great, and
and with like filters too.
Yeah, the only good thing about Facebook,
get the right angle pointing upwards at my booty so it looks as big as possible. Put that filter on it to emphasize it, to make it look more round.
The only good thing about Facebook, I think, is keeping in touch with like normies that you actually know, and like groups where like you talk about a particular topic.
I use Facebook to communicate with a lot of people like you guys mostly, and it's a way to communicate with people where you can just use Wi-Fi and you don't have to pay for international fees if you don't have an international plan on your phone for texting or something like that.
Yeah, and then
the apps they're good. You can get good out of the apps, but you got to have your PhD in social media apps in order for me, I'm the same. Like, I'm very limited on Facebook. If I go on, what's my uncle, what's my aunt doing, what's my mom doing? Okay, bye. I'm out of there. I don't want to fucking stay on longer than 5 minutes. And I'm the same with Instagram. I'm like, okay, cool. Like to everybody that I'm close with, and then see you later. I'm out of there. I don't want to spend hours on there. You know what I mean? I don't want to have it rewire my brain that I'm always trying to, feed it with this dopamine hit of like, oh, what's next? Who's liking my picture? Blah, blah, blah. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like for me, it's more difficult with Instagram, because I'm like, oh shit, that chick has a nice booty. Oh shit, in her story, she has 18 other chicks with nice booties who I could follow.
Yeah, but that's how you get not saying you're an incel or whatever, but that's a huge part of the incel culture.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And porn. These guys.
Well, that and incel standards are too high as well.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Elliot Rodger, his standards are too high. Like, they basically had to look like models for him to even consider wanting to be their girlfriend or boyfriend.
Yeah, it can get down to like almost eugenic levels. Like, she needs to have Jordan Peterson saying, like, she needs to have the right level of symmetry in her face so she can provide me with good offspring.
Yeah, it's sad. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think, our internet is definitely fucking up social interactions amongst people. And it seems to be having some type of negative effect on, I guess, males. So I don't know. Have they studied, like, the effects of social media and how these mass shooters kind of get radicalized?
That's a good question. I mean,
Some of them have different motives, it seems, because like the motive from the Buffalo shooter is like completely different from like the Uvalde shooter.
Oh, wasn't?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Valdi guy was like, he was bullied and he hated the people who bullied him. And then Buffalo's just like, oh, I'm a racist. Let me go kill black people.
Oh, okay.
But they're both roughly the same age, 18.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the well, like I'm sure an aspect of it is one that we've been talking about how social media and the internet have been radicalizing people so much so that they're more susceptible to extreme political ideologies, and then you can, like, for that racist guy, you can more easily find a whole bunch of racist groups online and stuff, and that can radicalize you too.
Yeah, like the internet can definitely cut you off from reasonable social interactions. Like I can pretty much chalk up like my conspiracy shit that I was into to browsing weird forums and shit on the online.
Hmm.
And then because I had a social life that was very different back then, like my social life back then was I worked at night and slept during the day, so I had no like real social interactions that were normal. So I didn't. For a time, like my friends was like, "Oh yeah, you're like never available." So because your hours suck, and now you're all into all this weird conspiracy shit. And then I started to have like a normal social life when I think I got fired from that job, and then I went back to school, and then I didn't know I was like a semi good looking dude, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And when I went back to school, I had to have friends that say, "Hey, this is how you're supposed to act. Let's go to a bar," you know. And to me, like going to a bar was a different experience after I got out of that phase. Like when I went to a bar, I wasn't looking for girls. I was just there to chat with my bros and have fun with them. Like I never had, I because I remember before then, that would be kind of a goal. And I felt like when I abandoned that as a goal was when things just started happening correctly. Like when you try too hard, things don't go that way very well when it comes to seeking out social interactions with the opposite sex. It
Yeah.
seems like you just have to not try hard, and it's weird. I just didn't get that
Oh
because I
yeah.
think women can sense when you're trying too hard, and they get put off by that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
And
that's a
totally.
common story for sure.
Yeah, I
Common
totally
story.
identify. I totally identify with that too. I used to be way worse with women when I was younger and like not miss their single or signals rather, and definitely try too hard and stuff like that.
yeah, so when I stopped trying hard, it's like, oh, I can get dates with like pretty decent looking chicks now.
Hmm.
And it's just like me not trying hard. It's me just trying to have like normal conversations, you know. But I don't know what it was. It was just weird to with that revelation. And I guess maybe that's kind of the problem with incels too, because they probably creep women out. I'm guessing that's the case. So I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to say because I can't
Yeah,
say
like
that I was an incel, but I kind of get when you're young and you're not like the Mr. Popular in high school, getting all the chicks. Um, there's definitely when you're in the lower rung on the totem pole and you don't have a social support network with friends that have um, that are in relationships that you can get advice from, it can be a problem. Because it sounds like none of these dudes had like legitimate friends.
yeah, yeah. That's like another
or girlfriends or whatever.
aspect of how internet and social media rather have increased loneliness and isolation for a lot of people too.
Yeah, like how do you maintain friendly relationships with people that is not proximate? It's like almost like you got to retool your brain on how to do these things. And when I was younger, like your social network was the people who are immediately around you. And if you want to talk to them, you'd either have to go to their house or call them on the phone. There was no texting at this time. So
And
at least,
now people will get together socially in the real world and then spend time ignoring each other and talking to other people on their phones.
yeah, it really pisses me off when I see this, or at least I know I do it sometimes, but I don't do it at length. Like I might get a text from like my boss and I gotta check it really quick, but I don't get into like drawn out conversations
Yeah,
on any medium when I'm in a social gathering. It just seems to me that's rude behavior. Like
yeah,
I'll
I
just pick up my
agree.
phone for like less than 30 seconds to check a message or something like that and respond to it if it's like really important. But you wouldn't catch me browsing any social media while I'm out.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like if you're hanging out with a friend or something, I also consider it rude to just be constantly on your phone all the time. And it's also, especially with like the younger generation of kids than us like Generation Z, like as Jonathan Haidt has talked about in The Coddling of Their American Mind, as you were mentioning, Chris, is that the Generation Z or so social media is such a strong aspect of their life that I've talked before about how some people like like on dating apps even if the people will get mad sometimes if you don't reply to a message right away, like you're being rude if you don't constantly reply to their messages or something like that.
Yeah, because I would say like in my younger days, we didn't have the social media stuff. But then again, I would say I would consider myself incel adjacent. The only difference is that at that age in high school, I didn't have a strong drive to acquire a girlfriend. Um, like I was interested in other things, and I would see my other friends that did have girlfriends, and to me, it seemed more of like a pain in the ass than anything else. So I was like, hmm. So throughout like high school and my early days of college, like I never actively pursued any particular women. Like the only thing that would happen is I would find out that a girl liked me and I'd talk to them, but I'd never like, oh, let me try to get with this chick over here. But I didn't put really much effort into it. I was like really into the shit that I was into, and that kind of like took up more of my headspace than our evolutionary wiring that makes us seek a mate or whatever.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, gotta focus on getting a ticket to the mothership instead, right?
yeah. Well, back then I was just like, what was I doing? Playing a lot of video games and reading alien fucking books
Yeah,
and conspiracy
yeah,
shit.
I mostly just wanted to play video games in high school.
Yeah, so that's what it was. That Dungeons and Dragons and fucking nerdy shit like that. Um,
Yeah,
and I
Golden
didn't
Eye and
care if I
nerds.
was a nerd. I wasn't like, oh, I should be with a cool kid and just so I can get chicks. That to me, it sounded like too much work and it sounded boring. So I just
Right,
didn't do it.
right.
Yeah, too much work, boring, just to kiss some chick. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you guys spend an inordinate amount of time focusing on that shit, and it seems like not that great in my opinion. That's kind of what my thinking was in the later half of my of high school. Even though I did get a girlfriend in senior year, but everything below like sophomore, freshman, like I didn't have any romantic interests that I pursued. I was like, I got my own shit here. I'll deal with this. And I didn't like it did not hurt me or affect me negatively that I needed to have a girlfriend or something. I know there are some people like that. I think like a lot of the incel community feels that they need that in order to be a valid member of society. But man, there are many different societal makeups where the number of men in society vastly outnumbers the amount of women. And there are
Yeah, like
some men in those societies that are just not ever going to get, um, married or have girlfriends or children. It's just because there are some societies where there are way more men than there are women.
China,
Yeah.
especially from I think a lot of that, but well, mostly just their fucking massive population, but also the leftover of when they had the one child policy, and it was, like you were considered only worthwhile as keeping as a child if you were a boy for the most part, or you were given much more worth or something.
Right, right.
Yeah, to
So
keep up with your
yeah,
lineage.
I don't know. Incels, I just think have a view of life that it seems like they have nothing going for them, really.
Hmm.
And that kind of makes sense when we're talking about Taxi Driver. He has nothing going for
Hmm.
him.
Yeah.
Nothing going
All he
for him.
does, all he does is work, and he has no friends, and he gets rejected by the one woman that he tries with.
Yeah, there's no video games in the 70s of worth. So
Hmm.
he can't even play
Could play
video
Pong or
games.
something.
Well, it's because video games to me are kind of like sports for people who suck at sports. Because
Yeah,
we
That's
have to think
interesting.
of
Yeah.
men and their proclivity to play war, right? So
Hmm.
sports is
Yeah.
kind of like an outgrowth of playing war, and I think video games is kind of a similar thing. That's if you play like multiplayer games and shit,
Yeah.
that aspect. So I think men always have to have some type of healthy comfort competition to stay sane. At least younger men, um, like below 30s, because I stopped playing multiplayer games like after I don't know 35. So I just play like single player games with cool stories. But
Okay.
I think that younger men do need this competitive aspect, and I think video games are kind of something like that. But you think of all of the greats, the people who excel in particular things. They are always obsessed with something
Hmm.
that takes up a lot of their time. I guess in incels, it's like they're obsessed with trying to get a girlfriend,
Yeah, I guess.
um, which is a self-defeating activity
Yeah.
because
And it's like it's hard to, and I think of an aspect of incels too is that they have a lot of trouble handling rejection. Like if you're gonna be in the dating world as a guy, you're gonna have to be able to learn to deal with rejection. I had to learn to deal with that too, and I'm much better at dealing with it now because I'm used to it. But if you can't handle rejection, I can see how that could drive you insane mentally and radicalize you towards violence.
yeah, and then there's just like some people that do not have like genetic lottery as far as like looks goes. But hey, there's other ways to get chicks. Like you have to work hard in other areas. One of
Yeah.
those is just being like financially successful, and that's kind of where you have to have some type of drive that's not about trying to get a check. Like if
Mhm.
you have a drive that's very powerful, like, hey, I want to be a really good musician, and like really, if you get to the level where you're good enough to play in front of audiences, you're gonna get chicks.
Yeah.
Like
Generally speaking, women like it when men have goals that they care a lot about.
yeah, like I was like really into when I was really like a musician who played in front of crowds and shit. When I used to do that. I wasn't going to play to find chicks. I was just playing because I loved music and I loved doing that. But yeah, there were a lot of times like after I got out of stage, we're like, "Oh, you want to hang out with us over here?" You know, it's like a group of girls was like, "Oh, we're going to this other bar later." And I said nothing to these girls before they approached me. They just see, hey, this person has a lot of confidence. They're on stage, you know, and they know if someone's up on a stage playing music and they look like they're having a good time, they kind of see that as, oh, this person has a lot of confidence because they can go up in front of a stage in front of a crowd and play some music. So they must be, there must be something about them that is, a positive quality that a woman would look for. It's not like if you're going to go about feeling sorry about yourself, that's not going to help. I know we're sounding like fucking red pillars now,
Yeah.
but this is like kind of common sense stuff. It's like you kind of have to like it is a competition, so you are going to have to size yourself up amongst other people. But if you don't want to compete in that way, there are other ways to compete. You
Mhm.
don't have to compete in the same ways that these other men are competing.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
like especially for the 70s where social roles were more different, Travis Bickle could have ramped up the fact that he made a lot of money because he was constantly working, like because women had less of a role in the workplace back then. That was more of a merit to women for dating back then, especially.
Yeah, because Travis was a relatively good-looking dude. He just didn't have great social skills.
Hmm.
Like he got the chick to go on a date with him. That's actually a pretty big accomplishment.
Hmm.
She is a very, very good-looking woman, and he was able to get her to go on a date, and then he just screwed it all up.
Hmm.
Taking a nice woman like that to a porn theater, like what the fuck is this problem?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like I
that's
don't
one of
even
the.
think most incels would do that. I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
yeah, like that shows just how socially awkward he is, right? That
Well,
reminds. I don't know why that reminded me, but that reminded me a part of the movie that I noticed watching this time that I forgot before, which is that after um after Travis Bickle is stalking Jodie Foster's character for a bit, he also goes out to lunch with her before he goes and meets her like in the role of a prostitute as a in the building and introduced by Harvey Keitel, I think, right?
oh yeah,
I
that's
forgot
right. Yeah,
I'd forgotten that scene before that they talk first.
yeah. I forgot that too. That they talk, and then he shows up as like a customer.
Hmm.
And that's where it was like pretty awkward.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, incels, man. I don't know what kind of advice I could give. There must be some type of incel rehabilitation group or something,
Yeah,
man. I
there
just
should be. That's like you were saying,
the
that's
problem is that
really.
they're dominated by those pickup artist dudes. Like those
Yeah,
pickup artist
exactly.
type guys are the ones that typically cater to those incels. And I don't. Some pickup artist stuff that I've seen is actually really good, but some of it is like complete garbage. Like the stuff that I saw that's really good is not stuff that focuses on women. It focuses on how to improve yourself specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like
uh,
like some guys don't know how to dress properly to look all fancy for going out to the bar or going out on a nice date or something like that.
or just like even if we're gonna go back to Jordan Peterson, like clean up your fucking room,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of start there and not be like a person that's not keen on prioritizing their time. It's like, yeah, if you bring a chick back to the disaster of a house, you're not going to be able to keep them,
Yeah. Don't bring them to places like those ones that I'm thinking about this because I released that tremor recently with Chris talking about the state of some homes that he's been to back in the day as a cable guy. If they're like hoarders or shit all over the place or something like that. Don't want to bring a girl back to a place like that, ideally.
Yeah, and you can always get practice, if you're an incel, um, go out to social functions. Like I was awkward at first when I was going to like clubs and shit. Like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Um, and don't go alone. Try
Yeah,
to invite a friend, and the friend could be a same-sex person. Doesn't have to. You don't have to always invite someone of the opposite sex with you. Like
hmm
like the vast majority of the times that I went out to clubs was with my homies. Like I didn't go invite try to invite a chick and say, "Hey, let's go to this bar." Like
Oh yeah, of course.
most of the time it was just me and my friends, and we would just talk about fucking video games, even
Right.
shit like that.
Yeah.
But as long as you appear to be a social person, even when you're talking with other dudes, it's gonna look much better if you're just like this person that's like back up against the wall awkwardly scanning the room,
Yeah,
you
yeah, of
know.
course. Going out like that's what I used to do, like go out go out with my friends to bars to get drunk and have fun and then also hit on girls while doing it, but that wouldn't necessarily be the main goal, just to like go out and get wasted because I was in my 20s and play pool and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just not being a creeper. I try not to be a
Yeah,
creeper.
yeah, yeah. Alcohol helps with that.
It can. It can, but sometimes alcohol can make you say some really dumb shit to girls.
That's true. Yeah, it can make you like it can make you
But
see say some like really creepy, violent sexual shit or something like that.
yeah, because I remember I said something. I was like at Lake Havasu at like a giant fucking drunk fest. I don't know. I think it was like a 4th of July weekend, and basically, um, so it was at Lake Havasu, and it was like a bunch of fucking people, my like youngins, getting drunk. And not only that, the Girls Gone Wild film crew was there at Lake Havasu. So you can
Oh
imagine
wow.
the kind of shit that was happening.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I found out that one of my acquaintances from high school is like working for that film crew.
Oh
I
wow.
was like, oh shit. I was like, what are you doing here? It's like, yeah, I'm working on this production crew. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, oh. And I thought the guy was like a nerd in high school, which I thought was funny. Um, so yeah, I said the wrong thing to a girl while under like heavy influence, and she got super offended. I had to leave really quickly. 'Cause
Yeah, I've done that sort
she,
of thing when I've been drunk before a few times. Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, yeah, that was not the right thing to say. So, and this is like funny because this is considering like, yeah, there's a fucking bus right here and girls are dancing topless, and me saying, "Hey, look at that hoe up there," and they're getting offended by that. It's like, yeah, she's dancing up there topless. Like, come on. And I wasn't
Oh,
like super like morally like conservative. I was just like, calling it like what it is.
Right.
You know? So, so yeah, I had to skip out of there, and like on the way back, I was like so drunk I couldn't find our campsite. So I basically like sat down in the middle of the road and collapsed and passed
Oh
out.
shit.
And then I don't know how long afterwards, but I felt people picking me up, and they put me like in the back of a truck, and then I somehow ended up at my campsite. I have no idea how. Yeah, they said you were so drunk, you didn't know where you were.
Yeah.
You're like hunched over with vomit all over you. It's like I have no
Oh man.
recollection of any of
Yeah. I've I've
that.
I've gotten blackout drunk before too. Yeah. I'm really glad that I don't drink much anymore and I mostly stick to weed. It's I don't think it's ever resulted in me throwing up on myself or saying something super stupid to a woman.
Yeah, because I remember I was at this Halloween party where I got blackout drunk, and I was dressed as Jules from Pulp Fiction, and I had like airsoft gun, like pistols and stuff. And the only thing I remember is like, oh, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm not feeling well. And then everybody said, oh, you woke up and started acting crazy. You were like throwing like ice at people, saying that they were hand grenades, and you're running from like helicopters that were not there and jumping into the neighbor's yard. I
Holy
was like, what
shit.
the fuck? Because then when I woke up like inside a house on a chair. I was like, how the fuck did I get here? And that's when everyone was like, yeah, you're freaking nuts. What the hell were you doing last night? I was like, I don't remember. I just went to sleep on the couch and in the stable room, and then now I'm up here, and then they told me like all the dumb shit that I was doing, and they said it was probably what happened because after I got up, someone told me to do a beer bong, but
Oh.
he said that the person that he saw that was like administering the beer bong, he said that they saw them pouring tequila into it. I guess I
Oh
didn't
wow.
notice it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so I got like a full-on blast of like liquor, and I was already drunk at that point, so that just
Oh
like
shit.
fucked me up like all the way up. And I don't even remember doing the beer bong.
Oh wow. Yeah. I learned the hard way to stop drinking Fireball whiskey because I love that stuff, but I figured out that it was the one thing I drank every time I got blackout drunk. So I stopped getting that because I didn't want to get blackout drunk.
Yeah, I've only gotten blackout drunk twice, thank God.
Yeah, it's not good.
All the other times I was like completely like aware. And then I did some dumb stuff when I was young, like driving and shit while I was blasted. I was
Yeah,
like
I
a
can imagine.
relatively good driver though. I was so paranoid while I was driving that I didn't drive crazy. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I was super attentive because I was like, okay, I know I've been drinking
Right,
and
right.
let me fucking drive normal as fuck.
I'm gonna drive 40.
Yeah. Like, I even drove a
Oh,
motorcycle.
that's a Canadian speed reference because it's common to have a 50-kilometer speed limit in residential areas.
Oh, okay, so that's
Yeah.
like 25 miles.
Hmm.
Yeah, I remember I drove from a club to another club on a motorcycle and I was fucking lit.
Oh shit, man. That's
Yeah,
not
my
good.
friends were like really mad that I drove there.
Yeah,
Like, I was like, well, I felt all right at the time.
right.
But yeah, I stayed at the other bar and like calmed down. I didn't drink anything there. I got like sobered up.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, yeah, motorcycle driving is definitely different. I don't know. Have you guys driven motorcycles?
No, I've never
No.
driven one before. I've been on one with someone else driving, but I've never
Yeah,
driven
me
one
too.
myself.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've never
yeah.
driven one myself. But I've been on the back of them before. They're fun, but yeah, they're not.
Sure are.
Yeah.
I went to high school with a guy who died in a motorcycle accident. I think only a year or two after we graduated. It was so sad.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, those they're not for people who are fucking reckless. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
As
For
I
sure.
used, like, I bought my first motorcycle. I was like 25, and I had taken like safety courses and fucking everything, and I was like the only person in my safety course class that got perfect score on the driving section. So I was like, all right, I think I am going to be safe as fuck while I'm doing this. Because the reason I got a motorcycle is it was around the time where gas was fucking ridiculous, and that was my only means of like transportation.
Yeah. Motorbikes are really good on gas. I remember you can fill up a whole tank for $10 or so or something like that. Or maybe that might have been like almost a decade ago. But yeah.
Yeah, like
And the way
gallons.
gas prices are right now, it's
Yeah,
time
it could be
to probably
20
think
or
about a
30.
motorbike again.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
You
Yeah,
say
still
gas
exactly.
motorbike?
prices now
Yeah.
were similar to what they were back then. Because I know in 2011 we had like almost $4 a gallon gas. I know it's a little bit more now. Well, this is $4 a gallon in like California, so everywhere else it's probably like 3.50 or less. But
Okay.
yeah, it was really good gas mileage. You're talking about like 60 plus miles per gallon, when the average at that time was like 25 miles per gallon with like a car. Um, the only thing that sucked was like riding in the rain, because this was like my only thing that I had to get around. So if I had to go in the rain, I had to wear like a full rain suit, and then like obviously rain hitting your helmet is a complete pain in the ass because you don't have windshield wipers on your visor. So you're like every 10 seconds, you're just like wiping your face off
Right.
with your glove, just so you could see. Well,
Yeah,
there
it
are
must
two
be rough.
methods. You either wipe your face off or you turn your head to the side. Because when you turn the head to the side, the wind basically forces the rain off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
yeah, not only it works when you're on the freeway, if on the highway, if you're just on regular streets, though, you're just gonna have to wipe your face off with your hand.
Might make you look like
But
you have Tourette's or something while you're driving going.
but yeah, I lived in California, so you can get by basically year round on a motorcycle,
Right. Yeah.
because it doesn't snow there and it rains infrequently.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that wouldn't make sense for like here in Alberta because we have such long winters.
yeah, here I would
Yeah.
not be able to ride a motorcycle during the winter or even during like there's so much like fucking weather here that I have to be wary of, that it would be impractical as a sole vehicle. Like it'd be fun to have one now, just like every now and then use, but uh yeah, over here we got actual seasons, so it wouldn't work over here quite as well. But yeah, I was like for 2 years I was riding a motorcycle. That was like my sole means of transportation. And I probably have more miles on a bike than most people do, because most people don't use a motorcycle as sole means of transportation. They just use it as, oh, this is the fun thing I get to drive every once in a while. So I put like 25,000 miles on the bike, and like all the motorcyclists I used to talk to like wouldn't even have a fraction of that amount of miles under their belt. So I was like really proud of myself that I was able to ride 25,000 miles and not get into an accident or anything close to an accident. Because I was super super safe, and I always see like dumbasses like on other bikes on the highway, 9 times out of 10, they'd just start popping wheelies to try to
Right.
impress me. Like, okay,
Yeah.
guy, I
Yeah.
don't give a crap about
I'd
what
be
you're doing.
I'd be too afraid to try shit like that.
Yeah, because I popped like a wheelie on accident. Like I wasn't even trying. I was just at a stop, and I was going from a stop to a start. And I guess I pushed it slightly too hard, and the front wheel came up. I was like, "Oh shit!"
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so uh, yeah, motorcycles are fun. You just got to be like super, super vigilant, like extremely vigilant. I know in a car you can get away with looking at a fucking cell phone for a few seconds, and you can't really do that on a bike at all. You're like
Yeah.
always looking around,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I bet.
because you don't know what dumbass is like not paying attention. Because frequently, at least once a week, people would turn into my lane,
Oh,
because
wow.
they don't see me, so you'd have to honk on them. So I got tired of that, and I just thought I started drafting semi trailers.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna draft semi trailers. That way people won't fuck with me.
Yeah, that's
And
a good idea.
nice thing about drafting semi trailers is you start getting better gas mileage too.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no more wind resistance. You're just like on a semi trailer's ass, and all the wind is just kind of going over the trailer and past you.
Right.
And you're getting like awesome gas mileage. So I just started doing that to fucking not deal with idiots like not seeing me and turning into my lane.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, that's motorcycling in a nutshell. I wouldn't
Right.
recommend it to everybody. I did it as a cheap solution for transportation because the bike I bought it for $1,400, and I had it shipped from Kentucky. So I bought it off of eBay, and it was cheaper for me to buy the bike on eBay than to buy it in my state, because my state, the local laws for the state increase the prices for motorcycles because they have to have all this special emissions equipment on it, which increases the price of the bike. So if I was going to go to a dealership and buy the same bike, it would have cost me like $3,500.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I got it shipped out of state. Um, and the out of state version of the bike is like slightly better because you don't have all that emissions equipment on there. So
Okay.
even shipping it, I had paid a freight truck to ship it to me, and it was still cheaper than buying it at a local dealership.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great deal, man. Hmm.
Yeah, so I was like, I need some cheap transportation that has good gas mileage, and that's what I picked.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. Well, I guess we kind of stopped talking about the movie a little bit ago, but I like how we did kind of a broad discussion about all the different aspects of Taxi Driver and how those aspects have changed in the world today. So hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, so for our next movie chat, like I was saying, I thought it would be cool to talk about. I just thought of this because it came on Netflix and it's a movie that I really like. I thought it would be fun to talk about The Devil's Advocate, that one in which Keanu Reeves becomes Satan's lawyer, played by Al Pacino. Have you guys seen that before?
I've not completely sat down and watched that movie. I've seen little bits and pieces when it's aired on TV, but I have not sat down and watched it from beginning to end.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that
Yeah.
for the next movie chat if you guys want to. Have you seen it, Chris?
No, I haven't seen it. I feel like I've seen the poster one time, but I never saw the movie. But yeah,
Okay.
I'll
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
find it.
good
It's
movie.
on Netflix, you said?
Yeah, it's on Netflix here in Canada,
Canadian
so you should be
Netflix.
able to watch it. Yeah.
I don't know if it's on my Netflix. The
And
only thing I remember
also,
about that movie is
Oh,
the painting.
oh yeah, yeah. That ends up being a really interesting aspect towards the end of the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
if it's
Also,
on
as
Canadian,
go
if it's
ahead.
on Canadian Netflix, if it's on Canadian Netflix, it should be on the American Netflix. Like
You
I
would
feel like
think
it's the
so.
opposite way around.
They're
You would
usually
think
Usually,
so.
they're
there's a lot of
usually
content
different,
that's on the American that isn't on the Canadian. Like
but there is vice versa too. Yeah.
yeah. I
No,
just feel like
sometimes Andrew will
Also,
tell me, "Hey, you can watch this on Netflix," and it's not on my Netflix.
yeah, yeah. But also I had mentioned too, for that movie chat, do you guys also want to, I was thinking it'd be fun to talk about it in comparison to the book Paradise Lost by John Milton, the classic book, because I watched this in the special features of the movie because I have the DVD. The Al Pacino's character who plays the devil, his name as a lawyer in the real world is John Milton, because this idea of Satan as a fallen angel and God's former right hand man came from John Milton's Paradise Lost rather than the Bible. So I thought it would be fun to discuss that movie in comparison to that book too. Although it's super old and written in a really boring style, but you could listen to the audiobook at 2x speed, and it's pretty short too.
How long is it?
I think the audiobook is 9 hours, something like that.
So that's like 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
It's free.
Yeah. Does that
Okay.
sound good to you guys?
I can check it. I think I have that
Yeah,
thing. I have that already downloaded, I think.
yeah, I saw that you had downloaded that too, and it's available in my library. It's probably pretty easy to find in a lot of different places, I would bet, because it's public domain at this point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I
That
can
sound
check it
good to
out.
you too, Chris?
yeah. Yeah.
At least the movie, Chris.
Yeah.
What was that?
The movie for sure. I have like
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many books in the queue right now.
yeah. It's cool if you don't if you don't end up reading the book. It's mostly just relevant for like just because his character, Al Pacino's character, is named John Milton, and this idea of Satan as a fallen angel. But that's not really a major aspect of the movie. It's mostly about uh, Keanu Reeves being Satan's lawyer.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, cool. Yeah, so thanks for talking, guys, and yeah, looking forward to that too. And thanks everyone for watching. Click that subscribe button, click that like button, share this everywhere, click that bell to be notified when I come out with more videos. I think probably the next one I'll do will finally be another one on my series on the post-structuralist philosopher Foucault's book History of Sexuality. So look out for that, and check out my last one where I was talking about how Jordan Peterson freaked out and got banned from Twitter because he was being a dick about Elliot Page, who used to be Ellen Page, and literally said that Elliot Page's transition doctor is a criminal. And then in his video about his tweet that got him banned, he literally compared trans people to Nazis. So that's some fun, stupid culture war shit. So check that out too. And yeah, check out our last movie chat also that we did on the new Batman movie, The Batman, with Robert Pattinson, which is an interesting film noir detective Batman take on Batman. And yeah, like I always say, check out my Patreon page in the description of the video where it is as always. And if you give me $10 a month, you can vote on future topics that I will discuss by myself and with others, and future books and movies that we will discuss. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And watch Taxi Driver. It's an awesome movie. and watch The Devil's Advocate before we do our next movie chat on it. Ideally in like 3 weeks or so, I would say, if that's cool with you guys. And if anyone watching wants to extra nerd out about it, like Dusty and I will, and compare John Milton's character to the Devil in Paradise Lost, go ahead and do that as well. All right, thanks again, guys. And anything you guys want to say before we end it there?
Yeah, just check us out tomorrow. We're gonna finally wrap up Winter's Heart.
Yes, check out
Hopefully.
Dusty's channel, Woke Centrist, where we will finish talking about that Wheel of Time book, Winter's Heart.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. We're gonna start the usual time since Tristram is on it. It's
7 p.m.
7
EST.
p.m. Eastern. Yeah. So
All right.
check us out there. And yeah, that Jordan Peterson video that Andrew just made is pretty good. I'd highly recommend that. And check out the comment section because it blew up a little bit.
Yeah,
I think your friend Shane Kennedy or whatever his name is.
Oh, he's a fucking psycho, man. Like, he literally was talking about how, Foucault's a pedophile. Come on, bro. Like, that's such bullshit. Oh, man.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of refutation of that claim.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever he quoted there wasn't even a real book. I was trying to look it up.
Particularly like on Twitter, people are so radicalized about that. The response ranges all the way from people missing the point that I was criticizing Jordan Peterson.
He didn't even address that at all.
Yeah.
He just attacked Foucault.
Yeah.
But then addressed like Peterson's shortcomings in that situation.
Yeah, so on one end of the spectrum, there are people who totally missed the point that I was criticizing Jordan Peterson and defending Elliot Page, because in my tweet about it before I made my video about it, I called Elliot Page Ellen Page, so I did named him because I didn't know that Elliot Page had changed her name, and totally missed the point that I was actually criticizing Jordan Peterson. It ranges from that all the way to like fucking predictable, deliberately calling Elliot Page Ellen Page and saying she's not fuckable anyway now, or she's mentally ill and all trans people are mentally ill and this kind of shit.
Yeah, well, I'll have to see how culture deals with this issue, because I know that's the same argument that was made with gay people. So
yeah, that's exactly what I was pointing out with how I was trying to talk about it from the perspective of Foucault, where he talks about that and how it's really, with the way some people see trans people nowadays, is very similar to the way gay people used to be seen. Like, they're abnormal and it's a mental disability and a psychiatric flaw and a sin to be a trans person, in the same way as it used to be seen, as gay people used to be seen. But,
well, here's an interesting thing that I saw. Was it today or yesterday? I think it was yesterday. I was dismantling a couch because I live in an apartment building and you can't just like put a couch out there because they get pissed off. So I basically took a couch apart piece by piece and kind of stealth threw it away because nobody wanted it. We were trying to donate it and everything. Nobody wanted it. So while I was dismantling this couch, a show called My Strange Addiction pops up.
Oh, I've heard of that before. There's there's one my friend was telling about where someone is addicted to eating couch stuffings. Like,
oh my god,
addicted to all kinds of weird shit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and this guy was like in love with his car and was like in a relationship with his car. And they had him go to like a psychologist or something. And I thought the psychologist like played it pretty interesting. Like, he didn't say that he had a mental disorder or anything. He tells the guy, yeah, there are multiple different types of sexualities, and you have an object-oriented sexuality. And you're going to have to think about how this is not socially accepted. And if you discuss this with people, you have to be very careful. So I thought it was really interesting that the psychologist didn't say, oh, there's something wrong with you and this is not something you should be doing at all. He is basically telling the guys like, okay, you are this, and I'm just letting you know you have to be careful on how you discuss this with people, as you say something about this in the wrong place or wrong time, and it can affect your livelihood and your other relationships. So I was like, that's an interesting way to go about that, psychologist. I get it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But I was like, well, okay, this is interesting. Because I totally expected like the psychologist to say it was some type of mental disorder that needed to be corrected. But that was not what was told to this guy. I was like, I guess there's some acceptance on some pretty weird stuff. But if this guy's like disorder or whatever you want to call it ain't hurting anybody, I guess he gives a shit, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right.
So
Anything else? Anything you want to say before we end it there, Chris?
Nope. Happy Canada Day.
Oh yeah, happy
Even though it's
belated
this way.
Canada Day, everyone who's watching this who's Canadian. We have
what is
Canada
Canada
Day.
Day?
It's Canada. It's celebrating the start of Canada Day as a country on July 1st instead of the way Americans celebrate the beginning of America on July 4th.
Is it like because of some type of document was signed or something like that?
Yeah, I think Canada Day it was on I think it was on July 1st in 1867 rather than July 4th in 1776 for the US that Canada officially became a country.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
like
And
90 years later.
all we did was separate from, not separate entirely from England, but it was seen as a independent, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because she's still your queen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
technically. Technically the country's leader is the Governor General who is connected to the Queen of England rather than the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, although that position is mostly seen as ceremonial, kind of like how the Queen herself is seen as kind of like a kind of like a ceremonial role in Britain.
Right. So you
Yeah.
got a queen now.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
personally
she's on
don't
her
give a
third
fuck
place, though.
about the Queen. I don't know anyone who gives a fuck about the Queen either.
So nobody says for queen and country, like when they're doing
I've
shit.
literally never heard anyone say that.
What about the military? Does like the military, Canadian military, say that for queen and country?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I have a friend who's in the military, but I've never heard him say that. I don't know if they say it in official gatherings or anything like that. That's possible.
Yeah, because I know that's like something James Bond would say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if that's like an actual real saying or not. It seems like a real saying.
All right. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for watching, and happy Canada Day. Watch Taxi Driver and watch The Devil's Advocate before next time we talk. All right. Adios. Until next time, everyone.